The King's Avatar, Chapter 1264 Unending Choices, audio source WurshaWorldAudiobook.com. Chapter 1264, Unending Choices. Translator, Nomyami. Editor, Nomyami. The two teams, and B, had each relied on a single person to pin their opponents in some form. An unrelenting offense was definitely a better way to disrupt an opponent than hiding around and dodging attacks. After all, if you faced your opponents head-on like that, it wouldn't just be a one-way beatdown. When engaging your opponent, you'd still be a threat. If the other wavered even slightly, there was the chance that you could counter and crush them. As for dodging around, that made you passive and it would become harder to stick to an opponent and disrupt them. Your opponents could easily switch targets and ignore a troublemaker who ran around. But the problem was that the character who was currently executing this pin was Lord Grimm. Unspecialized Lord Grimm not only had ranged attacks, but also those methods of unexpectedly increasing his movement speed. Whenever he began to move, Team A's members would always go on high alert. No other class was such a comprehensive threat, to the point where Team A was currently using two top gods, Huang Shaoshan and Josekai, to suppress him. But even the combination of these two top gods was having trouble dealing with the special class backed by Yi Xiu's cunning. The disruption Sun Xiang was achieving was costing him blood. But for Yi Xiu, he ran, leaving dust in his wake, luring away two of Team A's most powerful characters with not a scratch. If this continued, then what would be the point of Sun Xiang's disruption? It was practically like they were offering him up to Team B to beat up. "Cover me!" Yu Wenzu called out. Huang Shaoshan's troubling rain immediately sheathed his sword and returned to his position, standing guard at Swaxa's side. Josekai also changed his pace in accordance. Cloud Piercer began to move faster. As a sharpshooter, he didn't keep his distance from his opponent, but instead pulled closer to Lord Grimm, clearly hoping to strengthen the effects of his firepower to suppress him. If need, he'd probably pull even closer and engage with Gun Fu. Swaxa began to cast, and it seemed like he planned on finishing this cast no matter the cost. He was even using Huang Shaoshan's troubling rain as a meat shield. Yi Xiu wasn't able to go and interrupt, what with Huang Shaoshan lying in wait and Josekai advancing on him. If he persisted in trying to interrupt, he would definitely be completely trapped by these two. It was just that, with three of Team A's characters focused on Lord Grimm, two of Team B's characters became free to act. Su Mucheng and Chu Youngshu, originally having been giving long-range support, turned their attacks this way upon seeing Yi Xiu stuck between a rock and a hard place. Dancing Rain stepped forward in front of Windy Rain and whipped out a Gatling gun, wildly spraying bullets as she covered for Windy Rain's spell. Dancing Rain's bullets arrived, and no matter how amazing Huang Shaoshan's mechanics was, he couldn't use his swordsmanship to cut down every bullet. However, if the bullets flew past him, even if just one hit, then it would interrupt Swaxa's cast. Thus, Troubling Rain shielded Swaxa like a knight, taking a sturdy stance in front of the other. He dealt with what bullets he could, and if he couldn't, then he would block them with his body. Thud thud thud. Flowers of blood bloomed one by one on Troubling Rain's body, making him look exceptionally heroic. However, Gatling gun was still a low-level skill. Troubling Rain did look heroic, shielding Swaxa with his body, and there was enough blood to set the scene, but in terms of actual damage, it wasn't even worth mentioning. To make sure the cast was finished, this was completely worth it. However, being constantly hit by bullets, Troubling Rain's movements couldn't be smoothly controlled. There was still some level of stun from being hit by a bullet. With the consecutive hits, the small stuns linked up and the victim definitely wouldn't be able to move smoothly any longer. Thus, Windy Rain's spell was purposefully released just as Troubling Rain was most difficult to control. A piercing lightning shot forth. "Oh shit." Quote, "A silent stutter of the heart wasn't Huang Shaoshan style. He had to yell out directly." Windy Rain had hid behind Dancing Rain and suddenly struck with this skill, at such a time. How could he block it? He couldn't. Piercing lightning prepared to fly straight through the minuscule opening that Troubling Rain left under the effects of the consecutive attacks. Swaksar had little choice but to cancel the cast he was executing. Team A's plans seemed to have failed, but that was when Sun Xiang's one autumn leaf suddenly broke through his pin. Was Han Wenqing unable to suppress Sun Xiang without support? Of course not. Han Wenqing's attacks weren't just thrown with reckless abandon. He would cooperate with the support he was getting to perfect his offense. However, Su Mucheng and Chu Yongshu had suddenly pulled their support away just now. One Autumn Leaf, who was fighting several on his own, immediately found an opening. Sun Xiang had grasped that opportunity and broken out through that opening. Was it a misconduration of Su Mucheng and Chu Yongshu's? Evidently not. WuxaWorldAudio.com. This was yet another choice. To interrupt the Warlock's cast or to continue their support. They didn't split up and each take one choice because they knew that they wouldn't accomplish anything then. Thus, the two decided to interrupt the Warlock's skill. After all, a Warlock's CC would be crucial to changing the tides of battle. Thus, the Warlock's skill had been interrupted, but Sun Xiang had escaped. He didn't, as people expected, immediately begin to counterattack Desert Dust but instead chose to retreat. When Han Wenqing pursued him, he avoided the other and charged at Su Mucheng and Chu Yongshu's characters. These two characters were definitely not good with close combat, but if the two moved, Team B's formation would be disrupted. Team A had set trap after trap, considering all the details, and managed to back all the members of Team B into a difficult place. What should they do? No matter how difficult, they had to choose a choice of action immediately. Decisiveness was also one of the crucial characteristics a top-level player possessed. Dancing Rain raised her cannon and began to attack. She didn't dodge and instead launched a direct offense at One Autumn Leaf while Chu Yongshu's Windy Rain pulled away. These two female pros chose the third option out of to retreat or not to retreat. One retreated while the other didn't. It seemed like a wishy-washy decision, but it would allow them to retain their positioning with one person stalling so that One Autumn Leaf would disrupt their formation too much. It was a very clever and daring decision, and the two did well in deciding who would play what role. But they neglected to consider the players themselves. When One Autumn Leaf charged towards her and Su Mucheng hurriedly raised her cannon to attack, what lay in her heart was reluctance. Because that was One Autumn Leaf. Though it was just a character, it meant much more than that to Su Mucheng. She had never considered that, one day, she would cross cannon against spear with this character. She knew that she had to maintain a professional attitude, but attitude wasn't the same as feelings. Su Mucheng felt very conflicted, causing her mechanics to falter somewhat. One Autumn Leaf wasn't disrupted all that much, charging forth fearlessly. Chu Yongshu startled. This was different from what they had anticipated. She wasn't ready to provide support for her yet. A mistake. Su Mucheng had realized her mistake just now, too, but there was no chance to make an attempt at saving the situation. One Autumn Leaf had arrived, glittering sparks of light drifting around him like broken stardust. This was. Su Mucheng and Sun Xiang had both noticed the abnormality in their field of view. This definitely wasn't something either of them could produce. This was. From the air, a broom swiftly descended. Vakaria, broom tornado activated, swung his Stardust Extermination. End chapter. The King's Avatar. Chapter 1265. The So-Called Magician. Audio source, wushaworldaudiobook.com. Chapter 1265. The So-Called Magician. Translator, Nomyami. Editor, Nomyami. Wang Jiexe. Don't mention the players on the field. Even the audience who had the omniscient view felt that Vakaria's sudden violent arrival was shocking and bizarre. Truly, every single confrontation on field was a dazzling blur, from the cover of Yishu's Lord Grimm to his charging out from a heavenly lightning, earth and fire. Even the slightest change could affect everything. The players of the two teams one by one entered a chaotic exchange of attacking and defending. The non-stop changes were dizzying for the audience to watch, and in the process of this, Wang Jiexe and Tang Hao were the two players that hadn't entered the chaotic brawl. And so, the presence of these two players was overlooked to some extent. The ones more absorbed in the fight almost forgot that these two players were still fighting. Until now, when Vakaria suddenly plunged from the sky, with an arcing trajectory that seemed to trail stardust, and a broom tornado came down fiercely upon one autumn leaf's back. Vakaria had arrived. Only now did everyone remember this person's existence, and they thought of the opponent he had been tangled with just earlier. The live audience was fortunate, as the immersive projection system made a huge difference in watching the battle live versus watching the television broadcast. They had a full aerial view of the entire battle. But this time, even they had forgotten to pay attention to that area, until now. The audience turned their views. The television broadcast cut to a different camera, the target, Demon Subduer. And so, in the eyes of the audience, in the camera view of the broadcast, Demon Subduer, the #1 brawler of glory, a character that had reached the peak thanks to Tang Hao's upgrade, was currently pathetically collapsed on the ground. What in the world had happened? Everyone was engulfed by curiosity to the extreme. And the pain of the television broadcasters was great, for the current battle was progressing quite ferociously, and there was no way for them to cut back and show a replay. Show it in a small screen. One of the senior workers shouted. Thus, those that were watching the broadcast could now see in the lower corner of their screen a smaller display, replaying the events that had just occurred for everyone to see. No viewer objected to this because they too were intensely curious as to what had transpired between Wang Jiexe and Tang Hao. As for the live viewers, they couldn't see a replay with the projection system, but the display screens didn't interfere with what was currently going on as they too showed the replay for everyone. Everyone watched. In reality, it wasn't very long. It was just from when Lord Grimm helped cover desert dust to when Vakaria sent one autumn leaf flying. This entire process hadn't taken very long. And during that chaotic pile of fighting, what happened between Wang Jiexe and Tang Hao was actually very simple. It could be summarized in one sentence: Tang Hao was completely crushed by Wang Jiexe. Although this sentence was short, the amount of information it contained was truly shocking. Early on, everyone had acknowledged that Tang Hao was standing at the summit, someone who wouldn't lose to any god at the summit, past or present. But just now, in that brief period of time, he had been crushed. Crushed meant that he had utterly no ability to defend or parry. Something like that absolutely should not occur to a top god. The television broadcast didn't just immediately move on after replaying it once. They continued to use the small window to display it a second time. The live screens also didn't just replay it once, they even used split screen to replay it again and again from different angles. This wasn't Tiny Herb's home stadium, but period of silence. The live crowd exploded with home stadium-like cheers. And this was just for a mere replay, or replay of something that had already happened. This is, quote, in the broadcast, Pan Lin and Li Yibo had given up on their commentary of the match, and were instead searching for something to say about this past. This is the true magician. Li Yibo reached this conclusion. Indeed, the unimaginable playstyle, the trajectories impossible to capture, the rhythms and changes like magic. These were the techniques used by Wang Jieqi in the past that earned him the title of magician, and these were the techniques that he sacrificed for the sake of Team Tiny Herb. Now, it could be seen that Wang Jieqi had not forgotten these techniques entirely. In this all-star competition, where he didn't have to take up many responsibilities at all, he very casually displayed this style. And so, Tang Hao, this Season 7 debutante, someone who had never experienced the magician style firsthand, a young player who had only seen the style in old recordings and data, was beaten down by it until he couldn't tell which way was north anymore. People understood this point, and everyone was very clear, this wasn't a difference in skill. Tang Hao simply met something that he had never experienced before. It was just like all those players who, upon encountering Lord Grimm for the first time, were thrown into confusion. In a 1v1, quite a few people had been wiped out by Yi Shu. As of now, Tang Hao had yet to meet Lord Grimm, and if he did meet him, he probably wouldn't be as helpless as many of those at the beginning of the season, since half a season had already passed, after all. However, he met Wang Jieqi here, the magician Wang Jieqi, and although he had seen him before, he hadn't studied this style closely, because everyone knew that Wang Jieqi didn't play like this anymore. But who would have expected that in this all-star competition, this guy suddenly revived his magician playstyle? Although the audience had some understanding of Tang Hao's encounter, they felt overall that this explosion of something that had been hidden for a long time was extremely refreshing. In an instant, Wang Jieqi became the star of the stage, and everyone began to pay attention to his performance. And Tang Hao, of course, he was clear on why he would be beaten to this miserable extent, but with his personality, how could such a reason be acceptable enough to stabilize his heart? The instant that Demon Subduer was ultimately knocked onto the ground in a pitiful state, Tang Hao's rage was at its peak. He furiously controlled Demon Subduer to leap to his feet, turned his camera view, and saw on the other end that one autumn leaf had been violently hit just like him. Sun Xiang had entered the alliance in Season 7 just like Tang Hao. The two could be said to be the brightest stars of the new generation, and at the same time were two people who had never personally experienced the magician playstyle. The end result was unsurprising. WuxaWorldAudio.com. After Vacaria plummeted from the sky and sent one autumn leaf flying with a broom tornado, those traces of stardust continued to swirl around one autumn leaf's body, and very quickly, one autumn leaf was also sent awkwardly tumbling along the ground. Two of Team A's gods being knocked over like this one after another of course had a large impact on the current situation. Zhou Zekai hurriedly controlled Cloud Piercer to turn his fire, the bullets flying crazily toward Vacaria, but they only struck the residual traces left by Stardust Extermination. Zhou Zekai, a player from Season 5. In Season 5, Tiny Herb won the championship. At that time, Wang Jieqi had already completely shed his old style, so even Zhou Zekai hadn't personally experienced it. But he was at least closer to that era and had seen and heard more. So when Vacaria turned and rushed toward him, Cloud Piercer wasn't instantly wiped out like Demon Subduer and one autumn leaf had been. Wang Jieqi's storm-like sweeping of Team A was interrupted here. However, Josei's situation wasn't looking too good either, as he too lacked the experience to counter this style. He could only rely on his own instincts and skill to deal with Wang Jiexe, but he couldn't change the current situation. "Damn, old Wang, you could just carry this battle by yourself," Ye Xiu exclaimed. It seemed like a very ordinary statement of mocking and surprise. But those who were paying attention suddenly realized, even the viewers who had the omniscient view had overlooked Wang Jiexe crushing Tang Hao due to the intensity of the match. Ye Xiu, this man, who was currently very busy on the battlefield, had actually managed to notice all of this. The legend of the expert with eyes that could watch 6 directions at once, it was actually true. "Stop talking nonsense," Wang Jiexe replied coldly. His saying this was of course 1,000 times more powerful than anything Huang Shaoxun could say. Would Team B miss seizing this opportunity before them? Tang Hao was still trying to take revenge on Wang Jiexe, but he was cut off by Han Wenking's desert dust. After Vacaria pulled away Cloud Pierce's firepower and reduced the pressure, Ye Xiu's Lord Grim was using all of his varied rapid movement skills even as he complained about Wang Jiexe. One autumn leaf hadn't even managed to stand up when Lord Grim had already arrived in front of him and sent ferocious attacks toward this character who currently had the lowest health on the field. At the same time, echoing Lord Grim's attacks was the one who knew Ye Xiu best, Su Mucheng. Chu Yongshu's Windy Rain was also casting spells at this moment, covering Ye Xiu and Su Mucheng's offensive, sending continuous map-affecting spells toward that duo from Blue Rain. Countless changes in an instant, this was the only way the situation could be described. In the blink of an eye, many people had already exchanged opponents. The only change that hadn't changed was that Sun Xiang's One Autumn Leaf was suffering the fiercest attacks on the battlefield. And this time, it was no longer because he was forced to do this for the sake of charging forward, it was because he had become the primary target of Team B. In a situation without a healer, with the skill of these players and the strength of their characters, the damage output was truly ferocious. But Sun Xiang's luck was fairly good, as the two people who were currently attacking him happened to be the two characters who were relatively weaker according to the statistics. Lord Grim was probably the only all-star character whose weapon had yet to reach level 75, and was also the one with the least silver equipment. Dancing Rain's weapon was level 75, but the upgrades of her other equipment were lacking compared to all of the other all-stars who'd been upgrading continuously for a year now. Sun Xiang struggled, but he was still able to keep One Autumn Leaf alive. "What a shame, your damage output's a little weak." Quote, after Yu Wenzu was finally able to contain Misty Rain, Huang Shaoxun's troubling rain broke through Windy Rain's blockade. He and his noise charged to Lord Grim's side. "So damn noisy, I'll just leave this to you," Ye Xiu shouted. It was very clear to whom the first part of that statement was directed. Even people who didn't know the context could probably figure it out. But the second half, "Leave it to you? Who was you?" The audience didn't understand. The commentator and honored guest were confused. But at this moment, Ye Xiu's Lord Grim suddenly escaped from his current situation, flying like the wind toward Yu Wenzu's Swaksar. Wang Jiex's Vacaria also drew a bizarre path in the air, one that even the great gunner's bullets had no way of chasing, as he flew toward the target, Swaksar. Aside from this, Dancing Rain's cannon fire and Windy Rain's spells were also targeting Swaksar. There seemed to be only one option left for Team B's Yu, Han Wenking. Desert Dust. Another ferocious tiger flurry. End chapter. The King's Avatar. Chapter 1266. The True Assassin. Audio source: WuxaWorldAudiobook.com. Chapter 1266 The True Assassin. Translator, Nomyami. Editor, Nomyami. Ferocious tiger flurry. Fierce, fast, accurate, steady. The first punch knocked Askew Sun Xiang's one autumn leaf. The second punch forced Huang Shaoshan to stop his troubling rain and parry instead of rescuing Swaksar. The third punch forced Demon Subduer, chasing up from behind Desert Dust, to dodge and retreat. Only Han Wenking could play such a shrewd and precise ferocious tiger flurry, forcing these three top gods to instantly stop and defend, parry, dodge. It interfered with what they had each been planning to do. Even though it was just an instant, it was enough for Team B. Yu Wenzu, the one with the title of crippled hand in this professional circle. And now, he had to face Lord Grimm, the unspecialized with an incomparably rapid attack rhythm. The magician, whose unpredictable changes were incredibly difficult to grasp, as well as the launcher and the elementalist, the mightiest AoE attackers. He didn't panic, he still maintained his calm, but calm was not a panacea. Although he swiftly and clearly judged the situation on the field, this didn't necessarily mean that he had a way of solving it. By this point, Team B's strategic planning was entirely clear. Yishu was Team B's metronome. Every step he took directed Team B's attack direction and rhythm changes as a whole. And Wang Jiexi was the one who ultimately set the scene. He used his long-sealed magician playstyle to instantly throw Team A into chaos, creating many gaps in their team coordination. At this time, Team A was full of openings to attack. If these couldn't be seized, then these people wouldn't be called the top gods at the summit of glory. So at the end, the firepower transferred to Yu Wenzu. 4 attackers, 2 close range, 2 long range, against a warlock who in terms of hand speed had absolutely no way of keeping up with anyone on the battlefield. You guys are too cruel. All Yu Wenzu could do, perhaps, was smile bitterly and raise a slight objection to these fierce players. Han Wenking couldn't hold off those 3 people forever, but just this slight delay helped his 4 teammates gain the opportunity to focus on one target. What kind of fury could they unleash? Adding on to the fact that Yu Wenzu's defensive ability was a bit weak, Swaksar's fall would only take a matter of seconds. Huang Shaoshan's troubling rain was the first to break free of Desert Dust's interference. Rescue. This was his instinctive judgment and reaction to seeing Swaksar suffering from that powerful offensive. Troubling Rain had already stepped forward, but at this moment, Zhou Zekai's Cloud Piercer suddenly turned fire, sending bullets toward Desert Dust. Troubling Rain's steps suddenly stopped. A trade. He instantly understood Zhou Zekai's intentions. In a situation without a healer, saving Swaksar now was already basically impossible. It would be better to focus his attacks onto Desert Dust. Whether they could besiege their opponent enough to save their own teammate, or complete the trade, both were acceptable outcomes. Huang Shaoshan immediately halted his instinctive reaction. The fact that Swaksar was surrounded didn't cause him in the slightest to impulsively charge in. After all, he was the most brutal opportunist in glory. From a certain standpoint, he was in reality very cold, ruthless, and tenacious, because only like someone like that could he seize the deadliest opportunities. His sword light flashed toward Desert Dust. Team A's players instantly completed a surrounding formation toward Desert Dust. A 1v3 was impossible on this sort of beautiful stage. Han Wenking had already performed to the best of his ability, and now, he was being counterattacked to the strongest possible degree. But Tyranny's captain would never back down from any challenge. 1 against 4. So what? Even if facing 100,000 enemies, he would not bend. Desert Dust did not dodge or hide. He retaliated, he attacked. Team B's 4 players didn't reveal any intent of rescuing him. This was the rhythm of completing a trade. But would this trade be successful? A dazzling display of attacks roared forth. Swaxar's and Desert Dust's health bars plummeted down, but which was faster? The viewers couldn't tell at first, but in an instant, the exchange was just about complete. Swaxar's health was dropping faster. There was nothing they could do about that. Yu Wenzu himself was already inferior in terms of controls, and the Warlock class had low defense and low health, as well as poor survivability against close-range attackers. This sort of situation was much more difficult for him to face. For Han Wenking, on the other hand, the Striker class was a powerful close-range attacker, and reinforced Iron Bones once activated could greatly increase defense. If it had to be called a little unfair, that would be the fault of Han Wenking's stubbornness. In a situation like this, many other players would probably be a bit more flexible, more compromising. Team B took the initiative, and their attack rhythms were faster by just that step. Team A had to be complimented for their ability to keep up so well that the speeds were difficult to distinguish. Plus, in terms of damage output, Team B had 4 people and had the advantage in that respect as well. But ultimately, Swaxar still fell first. Team A's attacks instantly became even more crazily fierce. Fall. The final attack landed, but a white light flashed upon Desert Dust's body. He didn't fall. Damn, couldn't you take it a little easier? Do you think I'm Zhang Xinji? Yishu shouted. This flash of white light had of course come from Lord Grimm's instant healing cure skill. But like he said, he wasn't Zhang Xinji. Lord Grimm didn't have as powerful and specialized a healing ability as a movable rock, and he couldn't instantly bring up Desert Dust's health very far. Preventing Desert Dust from falling with that final attack was already the limit of what he could do. The 4 from Team B who had taken care of Swaxar now came to rescue. Lord Grimm healed, and Vacaria, Dancing Rain, and Windy Rain, those 3 powerful characters, were already firing. Retreat for now, or force the kill. Team A once again faced a difficult decision. Team B had surrounded him and were attacking ferociously. If they didn't retreat, this was the rhythm of everyone falling. And so Team A chose to retreat, as after all this was a battle with no healer. Sacrificing too much health to kill a target wasn't worth it, and the remaining attacking party at low health could be swiftly defeated. Even though Team B had Lord Grimm, the unspecialized healing ability was truly just a drop in the bucket. There was no way for him to heal Desert Dust to any significant point, and under a powerful barrage of attacks, he likely couldn't even complete another life-saving heal at a critical point. WuxaWorldAudio.com. Team A's characters retreated and scattered, but these were only 3 characters. Zhou Zekai's Cloud Piercer was a sharpshooter and had been attacking from a long-range position. Team B had shifted targets to save Han Wenking from the encirclement, but their attack range couldn't catch Cloud Piercer's position. It seemed that Zhou Zekai wanted to keep attacking to deal with Han Wenking once and for all, and that was exactly what he was doing. And just as Cloud Piercer prepared to continue his fierce shooting, Lord Grimm flashed before him. In the end, Team B didn't let Team A squeeze through this gap. Zhou Zekai didn't have the chance to fire before he was interrupted. The rest of them immediately gave Yishu a helping hand, and Cloud Piercer seemed to have become Team B's next target. But no one, including his own teammates on Team A, expected what happened next. Huang Shaoshan's Troubling Rain, just after escaping from Team B, immediately turned around and charged back. Shadow Steps. Troubling Rain instantly split into 7 images, opening the path with triple slash. Numerous silhouettes darted forward. Target, Desert Dust. The cheers of the crowd seemed to have fallen silent. Team B killed Swaxar and returned to save Desert Dust. One wave of high excitement had just barely passed and they were already regrouping and preparing for the next offensive. Everyone's hearts had just barely relaxed from the nervousness when, all of a sudden, Huang Shaoshan shot forward like a cold arrow. This opportunity seized was truly too fierce. The silhouettes flashed. Troubling Rain's sword finally pierced through Desert Dust. That tyrannical king of fighting, who never backed down in the face of hundreds of thousands of enemies, didn't fall under the powerful encirclement of 4 enemies but fell under the cold blade of an assassin. Huang Shaoshan, Troubling Rain. Even though he wasn't of the assassin class, he was a true assassin. Holy fuck. The viewers felt their hearts go cold, and all sorts of swears came out in the live stadium. Some were from the sheer shock of this sudden attack, some were from unhappiness at Desert Dust's fall as a result of it. This, after all, was Tyranny's home stadium, and Desert Dust was the highest god in their hearts. But no matter what, once he fell, there was no way he would be revived. In an instant, the two teams were now equal again. It looked like the players also need time to process all that had happened just now. 8 characters carefully moved position, facing each other, but for now none of them launched a new offensive. And so Yishu, with nothing else to do, gave the 4 characters of Team B some heals to let them slowly recover their health. Damn, are you brave enough not to use healing? Even if your stupid skills help heal, they can't heal that much unless you instantly use them at a key moment. Do you think that's useful at all? Do you? How much damage do you think one slash of my sword can do? It can completely ignore whatever healing you try to do. Did you know that? Can't you focus on attacking and not do these sort of stupid, complicated, cheap tricks that destroy the quality of the match and bring down the standard level of this showdown? Huang Shaoshan hollered. In the live audience, in front of the televisions, countless people's mouths twitched. This guy's chattiness was a huge obstacle affecting his popularity. That unexpected attack had shaken countless hearts. How many people were still engrossed in that sudden moment? The television broadcast had again split the screen for replay, and the display screens in the stadium gave the same treatment they had for Wang Jixi's earlier performance, multi-angle replay. But just at this moment, Huang Shaoshan's own passionate voice was dubbed over, and it was all some nonsense. Everyone was thrown out of the moment. Okay. Everyone's moods weren't the same anymore. Okay. The television broadcast will turn off your replay. Okay. Can't you be cool for a bit longer? Okay. Okay. No one had the strength to complain anymore. Someone like this, why did he have to have a bad habit like this? Was there truly no perfect existence in this world? 2 teams, 8 people, waiting there as though they had arranged a meeting. But, in the closest player exchange area, the 6th players of the 2 teams had already loaded in. Team A, Xiao Shichen, Life Extinguisher. Team B, Yufeng, Blossoming Chaos, End Chapter.